Manny Pacquiao woke up that March morning with a strange sensation in his chest, a restlessness that had been with him for weeks since his last victory in the ring. At 42 years old, the legendary Filipino boxer had achieved practically everything an athlete could dream of: world titles in 8 different divisions, international fame, wealth sufficient for several generations of his family, and the respect of millions of people around the world. However, something inside him cried out for deeper meaning, a genuine connection with the people who had supported him throughout his extraordinary journey from extreme poverty in General Santos City. Sitting in his luxurious living room in Manila, Manny watched through the window the morning movement of the city that had become his second home, reflecting on how his life had changed drastically since the days when he sold cigarettes on the streets to help his family survive. He vividly remembered the hunger he felt as a child, the dreams that seemed impossible to achieve, and how boxing had become not only his personal salvation, but also his way of inspiring other young Filipinos to believe they could overcome any obstacle. In recent months, however, he felt he was losing that essential connection to his origins, living in a bubble of privileges that distanced him from the people who truly needed his inspiration. His wife had noticed this growing restlessness and suggested he return to doing more community work, especially with children from disadvantaged communities who faced the same challenges he had faced decades ago. Manny knew she was right, but felt lost about how to approach this reconnection authentically, without it seeming like just a marketing ploy or an empty celebrity gesture. He wanted something real, genuine, that would truly make a difference in people's lives and also fill the void he felt growing in his heart with each passing day. That specific morning, his assistant called with a proposal that immediately awakened his interest. A public school in Marikina had requested a visit from him to inspire the students, most of whom came from low-income families struggling to give their children a quality basic education. The school principal had explained that many children there had Manny as their idol, dreaming of following in his footsteps in boxing, or simply seeing in him an example that it was possible to overcome poverty through hard work and determination. Something in the simple and direct description of that invitation deeply touched the champion's heart, who immediately cancelled all morning commitments to accept that unexpected opportunity. As he prepared for the visit, Manny felt a mixture of nostalgia and expectation that he hadn't experienced in a long time, as if he were about to rediscover an essential part of himself that had been lost amid the glories and responsibilities of being a world icon. He chose simple and casual clothes, avoiding any ostentation that might create a barrier between him and the children he was about to meet. He intuited that day would be special, but didn't imagine he would find there something that would completely change his perspective on his legacy and his purpose for the years to come. Upon arriving at the public school in Marikina, Manny was immediately transported back to his own student days, when he attended an equally simple institution filled with children whose dreams were infinitely bigger than their financial possibilities. The modest facilities, with walls that needed painting and old desks that had seen decades of students pass through them, awakened in him a wave of deep memories about what it had been like to fight for an education while working to help support his family. The world champion felt deeply honored to be there, realizing that environment represented the true essence of the Philippines, far from the spotlights and glamour that usually surrounded his public appearances. Principal Flores received him with a mixture of nervousness and genuine gratitude, explaining how Manny's visit meant so much to a community that rarely received attention from public figures of his caliber. As they walked through the corridors toward the gymnasium, the boxer carefully observed every detail, from the educational posters handmade by the students themselves to the expressions of curiosity and excitement on the faces of children who craned their necks to see him pass. Manny felt increasingly connected to that place, recognizing in every corner the daily struggle of ordinary people who strive to create better opportunities for the next generation. When the gymnasium doors opened, and he saw hundreds of young faces looking at him with a mixture of reverence and disbelief, Manny felt his heart race in a way that hadn't happened since his first important fights. There was something magical in the purity of those gazes, an adoration not contaminated by commercial interests or political agendas, but simply fed by genuine admiration for someone who had come from circumstances similar to theirs and managed to conquer the world. The champion immediately realized he was facing hundreds of younger versions of himself, each carrying their own impossible dreams and fighting against the same overwhelming odds he had faced. As he walked toward the center of the gymnasium, Manny allowed his eyes to slowly scan the crowd of students, instinctively searching for those who demonstrated the same hunger and determination that had been his trademarks since childhood. He had developed over the years a special ability to identify young people with real potential, not just in boxing but in life as a whole, and knew he would find there at least some who possessed the special spark necessary for great achievements. His experience as an occasional mentor to young boxers had taught him that true talent wasn't necessarily in the physically strongest, but in those who demonstrated genuine passion and an insatiable thirst to grow and learn. It was then that his eyes met the boy in the third row, a thin boy of approximately 12 years old who was crying openly while watching him with an intensity that immediately touched his heart. There was something familiar in those tears, a purity of emotion that instantly took him back to his own moments of discovery and inspiration during childhood. Manny felt an immediate and inexplicable connection with that boy, as if he were looking through time at his own younger version, and instantly knew he had found someone special, someone who deserved his attention and possibly his personal investment. Manny stopped in the middle of the gymnasium, mesmerized by the emotional intensity emanating from the boy crying in the third row, feeling in his own chest an echo of the same emotions he had experienced when he was a child and saw his own heroes for the first time. The world champion had participated in hundreds of public events throughout his career, but rarely had he witnessed such a pure and genuine reaction as what he was witnessing at that moment. There was something in the boy's posture, in the way his tears flowed without any attempt to hide them, that communicated an authentic passion that transcended simple fan admiration and touched the realm of truly transformative dreams. Without hesitation, Manny began walking toward the bleachers, feeling his heart beat with an intensity he hadn't experienced in years, as if he were about to discover something important about himself through that unexpected encounter. Each step he took toward the boy seemed loaded with meaning, as if the universe were conspiring to create a moment that would be forever etched in both their memories. The boxer felt a profound responsibility growing within him, an intuitive understanding that this wasn't just a courtesy visit, but rather a destined encounter that would change two lives in ways he couldn't yet fully comprehend. As he climbed the steps of the improvised bleachers, Manny observed more carefully the boy who had captured his attention, noticing details that confirmed his suspicions about the boy's humble origins. Simple but clean and well cared for clothes, worn flip-flops that indicated long distances walked on foot, and especially the eyes that shone with a mixture of natural intelligence and iron determination that he immediately recognized. The world champion knew from personal experience that these were the unmistakable signs of someone who had been born with big dreams in small circumstances, and who possessed the inner flame necessary to transform these limitations into fuel for extraordinary achievements. When he finally reached the boy's level and crouched down to be at the same eye level, Manny felt a wave of emotion that surprised him with its intensity. It had been years since he had felt so connected to someone so instantly and deeply, and he realized he was experiencing something he had forgotten since becoming a world celebrity, the possibility of making a real and tangible difference in the life of a specific person. Not through donations or abstract charity, but through a personal and direct investment in someone who truly deserved and would make the most of this unique opportunity. In that moment of silence charged with emotion, while looking into the boy's moist eyes, Manny made a decision that would change not only that boy's life, but also completely redefine his own purpose and direction for the coming years. He had found something he didn't know he was looking for, a chance to be not just a champion admired from afar, but a true mentor capable of guiding someone with real potential through the journey he himself had traveled. The boxer felt reborn within him, a passion and sense of mission that had been lost amid the glories and responsibilities of being an international icon. Manny gently extended his hand and wiped the tears from the boy's face, feeling in that simple touch a deep connection that resonated with his own most fundamental values about compassion and social responsibility. The gesture awakened in him vivid memories of all the people who had believed in his potential, when he was nothing more than a poor boy with grandiose dreams, from his first trainer to the promoters who risked their careers betting on an unknown young man from the Philippines. Manny understood in that instant that it was his turn to be that transformative person in someone's life, and that the universe had placed that special boy in his path so he could repay all the kindness he had received throughout his journey. The world champion began speaking directly to the boy, but his words were clear enough for everyone in the gymnasium to absorb the powerful message he was sharing. Manny spoke about his own childhood marked by extreme poverty, about how he had transformed each difficulty into motivation to train more intensely, and about how he had learned that true success wasn't just in winning titles, but in using those achievements to open doors for others who faced the same challenges. His words flowed with touching authenticity, devoid of any arrogance, as if he were sharing the most intimate secrets of his journey with someone who was finally ready to hear and apply them. As he spoke, Manny felt energized in a way he hadn't experienced in months, realizing he had found a new dimension of his purpose that went far beyond his own sporting achievements. He explained to the boy that he recognized in him not just passion for boxing, but also the genuine humility and hunger to win that were essential characteristics of every great champion, and that he was willing to personally invest in his development if the boy was prepared to do his part. The boxer felt a mental clarity he hadn't had in a long time, as if he had finally found the answer to the restlessness that had been consuming him in recent months. Manny then made a decision that surprised even himself. He took his personal phone from his pocket, wrote his number on a piece of paper, and discreetly handed it to the boy, whispering that he wanted to personally follow his progress and development. He explained that he had decided at that moment to adopt the boy as his personal protege, offering to cover not only his specialized training, but also his education and basic needs, as long as he maintained his grades in school and demonstrated total dedication to the training that would begin immediately. Looking deeply into the boy's eyes, Manny made a promise he knew would change both their lives forever. He said he truly believed in the extraordinary potential he saw in that young man, and that he would be willing to dedicate the next years of his life to help him transform his dreams into reality. The world champion understood at that moment that he had found not just a talented young person to mentor, but also a new reason to continue fighting, training, and dedicating himself to the sport that had defined his entire existence. That casual encounter had transformed into the discovery of his true legacy, not just his own achievements, but his ability to multiply those achievements through the lives of others who deserved the same opportunities he had received. In the days that followed the transformative encounter at the Marikina school, Manny experienced a complete renewal of energy and purpose that surprised him with its intensity and clarity. The world champion, who had felt somewhat lost amid the established routines of his celebrity life, discovered that having a real protege had reignited his passion not just for boxing, but for life in general. He woke up every morning thinking about how he could better structure the boy's development, what strategies he could implement to ensure the boy received not just quality technical training, but also the emotional and intellectual education necessary to become a man of exemplary character. Manny invested considerable time researching and interviewing the best youth trainers in the Philippines, looking for someone who not only mastered advanced boxing techniques, but also understood the importance of developing young athletes holistically and responsibly. He knew from personal experience that technical training, no matter how good, would be useless without proper development of mental discipline, emotional resilience, and moral values that distinguish true champions from simple, temporary winners. The trainer selection process became almost a positive obsession for Manny, who saw in this choice one of the most important decisions he had made in years. The relationship with the boy, which had begun with an exciting conversation in the school gymnasium, quickly evolved into something much deeper and more significant through the weekly phone calls that Manny had established as routine. These calls became sacred moments in the world champion's schedule, occasions when he could exercise his accumulated wisdom while rediscovering the purity of passion for the sport through the enthusiastic eyes of his protege. Manny discovered that teaching and guiding a talented young person was as rewarding as any victory he had achieved in the ring, perhaps even more so because it represented the creation of something lasting that transcended his own personal achievements. The boy's family, especially his hardworking mother, deeply touched Manny's heart, reminding him of his own mother and the sacrifices she had made to support his seemingly impossible dreams. He decided to extend his support beyond the young boxer, discreetly helping the family establish a more solid financial foundation that would allow the mother to dedicate more time to her son's emotional support without the constant pressure of economic survival. This generosity wasn't motivated by obligation or publicity, but by a genuine understanding that any young athlete's success depended greatly on the stable and loving family environment that surrounded him. Manny began to realize that his impulsive decision to adopt that boy as his protege had triggered a transformation in his own life that was much more significant than he had anticipated. He rediscovered the pure joy of being in the gym, not just to maintain his own physical condition, but to develop training strategies that could be adapted for his young protege. The world champion felt he had found a new dimension of his identity that went far beyond being just an exceptional boxer. He had become a mentor, a guardian of dreams, and a multiplier of opportunities for those who most needed a chance in life. 6 months after the encounter that had completely redefined his life goals, Manny found himself completely immersed in his new role as mentor and developer of young talents. The world champion had discovered that working with his protege had reignited his own passion for training in a way he hadn't experienced in years, forcing him to analyze and articulate techniques he had mastered instinctively but had never needed to explain systematically. This teaching process had deepened his own understanding of boxing and had made him an even more intelligent and strategic fighter, even at an advanced stage of his career where most athletes were already slowing down. Manny's routine had been completely restructured to accommodate his responsibilities as a mentor, and he discovered that this new organization had made his life much richer and more meaningful. He dedicated entire mornings to studying videos of promising young boxers, developing personalized training programs, and coordinating with specialized trainers his protege's technical development. These activities, which he had initially viewed as additional responsibilities, had become sources of energy and inspiration that positively influenced all other aspects of his life, including his own training and fight preparations. The relationship with his young protege had evolved into something that transcended simple sports guidance, becoming a genuine connection based on mutual respect and true affection. Manny discovered he had much to learn from the boy's fresh perspective and pure determination, which approached each challenge with an intensity that reminded the world champion why he had fallen in love with boxing in the first place. The conversations between them were no longer limited to fighting techniques, but encompassed themes like education, family values, social responsibility, and the importance of maintaining humility even in the face of growing success. Manny began to notice that his investment in the young talent was generating results that exceeded all his initial expectations, not just in the boy's technical development, but also in his own evolution as a person and professional. He discovered that explaining complex boxing concepts to someone who was learning had forced him to refine and deepen his own technique, making him a more intelligent and strategic fighter. Additionally, the responsibility of being a constant example for his protege had elevated his own standards of behavior and discipline, creating a virtuous cycle of mutual growth that benefited both. His protege's first official fight became one of the most exciting and proud moments of Manny's life, surpassing even some of his own most important victories. Watching from the back of the gymnasium, the world champion felt a unique mixture of nervousness and pride as he observed the young man applying techniques they had practiced together, demonstrating not just physical ability, but also the tactical intelligence and solid character that Manny had worked hard to develop. When the boy won his first fight by unanimous decision, Manny experienced a completely new form of satisfaction, realizing he had discovered something that could be even more gratifying than his own achievements: the ability to multiply success through others and create a legacy that would continue far beyond his own active career. 2 years after that casual encounter that had completely changed his perspective on purpose and legacy, Manny Pacquiao looked back with a sense of fulfillment that transcended anything he had experienced during his individual boxing career. His protege had become not just a promising young boxer with 5 consecutive regional titles, but also an inspiring example of how proper investment in young talent could generate extraordinary results that benefited not just the individual, but the entire surrounding community. The world champion had discovered that his true calling wasn't just to be a great fighter, but to be a creator of opportunities and a multiplier of dreams for those who had potential but lacked resources. The transformation that Manny had observed in his young protege served as a catalyst for an even greater change in his own life and priorities. The boxer began developing a broader vision of how he could use his influence and resources to identify and develop other young talents. Not necessarily just in boxing, but in various areas where Filipino children demonstrated exceptional potential but faced socio-economic barriers. He had understood that his experience with one protege had given him skills and knowledge about talent development that could be applied on a larger scale, creating a much more significant social impact than anything he could achieve just through his own personal accomplishments. The special relationship that Manny had developed with his protege had also profoundly transformed his approach to his own career and how he saw his role in Filipino society. He discovered that being a mentor had given him a new perspective on leadership and social responsibility, teaching him that the true power of his fame and success wasn't in his ability to impress crowds or win titles, but in his ability to identify wasted potential and transform it into real achievements that could inspire an entire generation. This understanding had changed not just how he trained and fought, but also how he related to fans, media, and business opportunities. During his protege's 15th birthday party, Manny experienced a moment of profound clarity about what truly constituted a well-lived life and a lasting legacy. Watching the young man interact confidently and humbly with guests, speaking about his future dreams with a maturity that impressed everyone present, the world champion understood he had discovered something much more valuable than any world title: the ability to create multipliers of his own success and values. He realized that investing in young talents wasn't just a way to give back to the community, but also the most effective strategy to ensure that the values and principles that had guided his own journey would continue positively influencing the world long after he retired from the rings. That night, Manny made a decision that would define the next chapters of his life. He would formalize and systematically expand his work developing young talents, creating a replicable methodology that could identify, develop, and support exceptional children in various areas. He had discovered through his experience with a single protege that he possessed not just the financial resources, but also the skills, network of contacts, and passion necessary to make this difference on a much larger scale. The world champion realized he had found his true vocation, not just to be a great boxer, but to be a great former of other great talents, multiplying his positive impact through each life he touched and transformed. That boy who had cried upon meeting him had inadvertently given him the greatest gift he could receive: a new purpose that would give profound meaning to all the years he still had ahead. 3 years after that transformative encounter in the Marikina School Gymnasium, Manny Pacquiao had discovered a completely new dimension of personal fulfillment that transcended any achievement he had reached in rings around the world. The world champion had understood that his greatest victory wasn't recorded in any official boxing record, but rather in the extraordinary transformation he had witnessed in his young protege, who now competed at the national level and excelled in both sports and studies. Manny felt profound satisfaction in realizing he had managed to break the poverty cycle of an entire family through an investment that had cost much less than any of his professional fights, but had generated infinitely greater emotional dividends. The experience of mentoring a talented young person had revealed to Manny skills and passions he didn't even know he possessed, transforming him not just into a better boxer, but into a more complete and fulfilled person. He discovered he had a natural intuition for identifying potential in young athletes, infinite patience for teaching complex techniques, and genuine satisfaction in seeing others grow and achieve their own successes. The world champion realized these mentoring qualities had always been latent within him, waiting for the right opportunity to manifest. And that casual encounter with a crying boy had been the perfect catalyst to awaken this dormant vocation. Manny had quietly begun expanding his talent development work, identifying other promising young people in different sports and academic areas, applying the same principles of personal investment and close monitoring that had worked so well with his first protege. Each new young person he began mentoring brought unique challenges and opportunities for personal growth that kept his own passion for life constantly renewed. The boxer discovered he had found an inexhaustible source of motivation and purpose that made each day more meaningful and each achievement more gratifying than anything he had experienced during his years of individual glory. The special relationship with his first protege continued to be the emotional foundation of his entire new life philosophy, but had evolved into something even deeper and mutually enriching. Manny had realized the young man wasn't just a beneficiary of his guidance, but also his teacher in many aspects, constantly reminding him of the importance of maintaining humility, gratitude, and the hunger to grow that had been the foundations of his own success. This mutual learning relationship had taught the world champion that true legacy wasn't in being remembered as a great fighter, but in being recognized as someone who had used his influence to multiply opportunities and create other champions in life. As he watched the young man who had become almost like a son to him prepare for his first professional fight, Manny experienced a unique mixture of paternal pride and personal fulfillment that surpassed any emotion he had felt in his own moments of maximum glory. He had discovered that the true meaning of being a champion wasn't in defeating opponents in a ring, but in empowering others to overcome their own obstacles in life and reach their maximum potential. The world champion finally understood that the boy who had cried upon meeting him had given him much more than he could ever repay. A new identity, a renewed purpose, and the understanding that the most lasting success was that which multiplied through other people. Manny Pacquiao had become not just a great boxer, but a true champion of life, and he knew this would be the achievement for which he would like to be remembered forever.
Leave your like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next cases.